Crash Course Live is presented by
Smash It Demolition Derbies, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at smashitderby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, hosts of Maymania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at stirringdirtracing.com.
Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, episode number 259 on deck. Closing up a little bit. I think it's within reason now to start thinking about where we're going to be through the course of 2019. You know, you start looking at the weeks that are left. We're going to be flirting with 300 by the end of the year. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Is it too early to be talking about that? Is it too early to go there?
No, it's crazy. I mean, you know, it seems like it was just yesterday. You know, we started, and then you sit back and think about the places we've been and the people we've met, and how many of these we've done in studio, and it's crazy.
Yes, that number is just studio. It's just here at Academy Square and over in the old Dove building over on Fall Street. So it's been quite the ride, to say the least. But it's been a busy week.
Yeah,
and there's been a lot of stuff that has happened for a lot of different people in a lot of different places, namely Rick Clarke coming away with the win at Redneck Rumbler. Congratulations to him. We've got Brandon Dixon sitting here on the line. There's some new shows that are cropping up that we're going to be bringing you some more details on as that gets going. They've been raffling off a handful of spots, waffling off a handful of spots for Mini Meltdown online with Spinning Wheels. We've had some good conversations with some fans that were wondering where we were yesterday. I was feeling miserable, and we traced it back to some errant labeling, I believe, is what the issue was.
Is that what it was?
Because, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Because I didn't feel like – it wasn't like flu sick. It was just this weird
it's been a while since you've had –
and it was a good one. I mean,
some gluten.
It knocked me out. I slept for I left school, and I slept until 5 o'clock and slept from 6 until 9 o'clock when I went to bed, and slept from 10 o'clock straight through until...
That's usually more sleep than you get in like a month.
That's a lot. It's a lot. But, yeah, I'm feeling much better now that I feel a lot better just knowing what's going on, you know?
Yeah. Did you eat some cardboard this morning to make sure you felt better?
It's actually just a lot of water.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to eating something probably tomorrow is when we'll start worrying about real food.
Give it some food.
Yeah, still another day or so. But, yeah, it's been busy. A lot of stuff going on. Brandon Dixon is waiting on the line with us right now. Appreciate everybody tuning in to hang out with us tonight, and welcome again to episode number 259 of the Crash Course. Brandon is the promoter of Redneck Rumbler, and what a successful show it has come to be. It's on the radar for everybody, and I'm sure that Brandon is excited to have this one done so that he can start focusing on the next event coming up in April. Brandon, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. How you guys doing?
We're doing okay tonight. So now that Redneck Rumble's in the books, you know, where are you at in terms of your planning? How many? I guess let me ask that a different way. How many phone calls have you taken for Urban Destruction already?
I would probably put it in the 200 to 300 class. I'm guessing.
Just since the conclusion of Redneck Rumble?
It's not as much phone calls anymore like it used to be when we first started. It's a lot more private message on Facebook or text message, you know, on your cell phone. But, yeah, definitely those guys, a lot of them have already started on their cars for sure.
I'm talking more for the perspective of the conclusion of the Derby Saturday until now. Are you talking 200 to 300 in that time frame from Saturday to present?
Mostly for, seeing if there are spots available and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it gets a little hectic sometimes.
I believe it. Holy cow. Can you imagine?
No. That would wear my liking people right out. There's a reason I'm not a big Derby promoter.
I suppose, but...
I remember I took a screenshot of my Facebook icon when I think we finished up with Redneck Rumble and an announced Urban Destruction. I think that was what happened. But anyway, I woke up the next morning, there was 549 notifications or somewhere around that thing, and I just took a screenshot, and I thought, man, what the heck am I going to do with, with all this? So it took me about 12 or 13 hours to cipher through all this stuff.
I was just going to say, if you sit down and have to answer all those, that's got to take most all the day, literally, like all day long. Like that's crazy.
Especially like you do like a registration or something, and guys are just nailing you for what's the link and what time's it open, is it Central Time, is it this, and those are the days that are really busy, or the day of an event. Hey, I'm running behind, or hey, I forgot this. Can I scan my ticket? Can I scan it off my phone? There's only like 6 or 8 days a year that it gets really crazy, but for sure, those are the good ones.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that you don't take into account is you've got 549 notifications. That's the to-do list. That's what you've got to get to. But as soon as you respond to one of those people, if it's a text message, a private message,
they can respond back.
Then they write back. So now you're in the middle of juggling
1,500
a handful of conversations, still trying to, and that might be notification number 10 out of 549. That's insane. I mean, well, good for you. I mean, obviously people are paying attention to what you're doing.
Yeah, at least they're reading the post. You think, well, at least somebody can read in the group and actually, decipher what I was trying to put out there for information.
Sure.
Now, would you say that one show is more stressful than the other, or are they both about even?
I mean, some of them have a more stressful, I guess, atmosphere because there's more on us to do. Like Redneck Rumble, the fair board actually works the gates. So that's not terrible. Plus, they're responsible for the payout and the website for the online ticketing sales and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
But it ranks right up there with the other two due to the fact you're cramming almost the same amount of cars into one day.
Yeah.
Looking back to this past weekend, you said it was a little bit stressful, but at the same time, the show has begun to stand on its own feet pretty effectively. How was the turnout? How was the response for Redneck Rumble this past weekend?
It was actually probably the best one we have done. That's number 6. We've been doing it since 2014, and the atmosphere was phenomenal.
Right.
All the way from the vendors to the drivers, the fans. It was just absolutely a great weekend for us.
Cool.
It's probably a good thing it wasn't this coming weekend.
Yeah, polar vortex.
Yeah, it's chilly.
Early in the week, they were predicting like 20-something degrees and 30-mile-an-hour wind. I was like, oh my goodness! And then we end up with like mid-40s, and it was pretty calm.
That's cool.
So the weather was much better than they predicted.
So, in terms of the show, and I know you had mentioned that you got some notes together that you wanted to recap. You want to hit some of those highlights now?
Yeah, I mean, there's just a few things that kind of stood out to me, and we kind of touched on it last time we had our little podcast going on, is how diverse a lot of these shows are becoming.
Sure.
From each class, we looked the mini truck, minivan class. A gentleman from Kentucky, Justin Buckman. He won it in a little Dodge Durango. Mm-hmm. And then Bone Stock was won by a gentleman from Arkansas, Jeremy Fowler. And then the Buddy Heat was from Indiana, Luke Warland. He's part of the Crazy Inc. crew. Mm-hmm. Old school, like you mentioned, was Rick Clarke, Canadian guy winning it in a wagon. And then we go to the metric class, Bill Miller from Illinois won it. So there's no one single state that dominates our shows. There's a good variety from each state or even from Canada.
And that's a pretty solid footprint that you're drawing from, too.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good reach.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate that where we're located at. We're kind of centralized in what I consider a pretty vast derby driver population.
Well, I mean, does that also help it? You've got 4 shows through the course of the year that are spread out pretty nicely. You've got your own county fair, which lends itself nicely to keeping the hometown type driver interested in possibly trying it, helping them build a little bit of confidence. And because things are so densely populated, there's enough driver talent to go around to where you can pull a portion of that population, and another promoter can pull a portion of that population in another direction, and both of you still have a healthy car count.
Right, exactly. John Peck has the show there in Louisville. You know, he pulls a pretty good mix. There's a good population of Kentucky drivers, but he also has drivers from 6 or 7 other states, it looks like, on his driver's list. And then really Spring X is only about 4 hours to the west of us. And the same thing, those guys get a good mix. And they get a little bit of the northwestern guys that we may not get typically, but still they get some of the same drivers we do.
Right. And we're seeing, it almost depends on the day on how this goes. There's times where it seems like those promoter walls are being knocked down. We're seeing that overlap on the bigger shows. And then other times it seems like those are really entrenched. And I don't know if I haven't looked at it close enough to say that, well, it's because of the rules, it's because of the pad, it's because of this or that. But it does seem like it's coming in swings. Like sometimes there's an uptick where you see people branch out and you see them all over the place. And then there's other years where you see drivers that are locked in and they're just running their promoters' shows, you know, and it's working either way.
Yeah. I think there's times where, you know, sometimes a driver will get mad for whatever reason and, I'm not going back there. So then him and, you know, a couple other guys won't go back and they just, like you said, stay to their promoters. But, you know, the thing is there's so many good shows have come up in the last 5-6 years for drivers to run. I mean, you know, it's, you know, promoters like Brandon have, you know, started taking care of drivers better, you know, establishing better inspection crews. You know, it's becoming a more professional production. So, I mean, guys, you know, I think sometimes guys, you know, it depends, you know, how they, you know, financially, you know, family stuff going on, all that as to where they're going and what they can do. But, I mean, there's just, you know, so many. I mean, if you really think about it, like you touched on it here a week or two ago, you know, you talked about what we used to consider a national derby. And I mean, it was kind of Metal Mayhem, you know. And then, you know, but you look now and I mean, there's a handful of derbies, you know, that you can count as national, you know, top of the line derbies. So, I mean, it's definitely picked up. You know, people can kind of pick and choose and, you know, go by builds or money or whatever as to where they go. But, you know, they really have a lot of options now. So, I mean, which I think is good for the sport. I mean, I don't see any of the you know, the top tier derbies suffering. You know, they all seem to pull a pretty decent group in. So, I definitely think the sport's growing and it's a great thing.
As a promoter, as a driver, how much do you get to drive these days?
I think I ran 3 shows last summer.
When you're out at those shows, does that help galvanize what you want to do for drivers and how you want to be seen as a promoter? Does it, you know, I don't want to put a negative spin on it. So at risk of that, I don't want to, but at risk of that, does that help you learn more about what not to do by going out and being a driver yourself so that you can help refine your craft as a promoter?
Realistically, that's kind of how we got started, honestly. You know, we ran some shows that, you know, the drivers weren't treated as assets, you know, and that's just not the direction we want to see things go. You know, you go to a show and they act like they don't even want you there.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
You just scratch your head. You're like, really? I just worked my ass off for 3 months, you know, getting this car together and getting all the funding to make sure I can build a competitive car, and I get here and you want to tell me you don't even want me here?
Right.
You know, and the crowd is there to see the drivers. You know, they don't really care who the promoter is. You know, you get a reputation as a promoter if you either produce a decent show or you don't. But realistically, guys don't go watch a certain promoter. They go watch a certain event because it produces a good, entertaining event.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you drive well or good drivers, as, you know, not giving them the respect or, you know, recognition they deserve, you know, I don't know. That's kind of how we got started.
Sure. Do you need name drivers now at the national level to have a quality show that will get response from the fan base?
you're always going to get certain guys that bring in certain groups of spectators.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it may not necessarily be that they're national drivers, but because possibly they're entertaining, or, you know, they build a nice car, etc. You know, one guy that always comes to my mind that you never can tell what you might get is Trevor Jones. You know,
Right.
He may be there to drive it out one night, or he may be there, you know, hey, I had a rough week at work, and I'm going to set this thing on the floor at 3, and I'm going to crush somebody.
That's very true. You know, there's, when we talk about the national drivers and the people that are recognized, the first name that always comes to mind in terms of some of our travels is Jason Brzezinski, Don Santel, you know, Mike Brown. Those are names that people come to see. But then in terms of what Brandon was just saying, Brian, you know, you think about the people who travel well, Teddy Papadopoulos, the Ewers, those guys, they travel well, and as what Brandon was saying, you don't know what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. In terms of, you know, Teddy, we've seen him drive to win. We've also seen him drive to kill.
Yeah. chunk of beautiful Cadillac, yeah.
But that's,
I think the national events have also, you know, with it being live streamed, with the podcast information out there and the social media, you know, it's brought a lot of guys that really weren't recognized before as hard drivers or competitive drivers. It's brought those guys to the surface and improved the sport quite a bit.
I agree with that.
And I definitely think, you know, then that's the thing with so many, like I said, there's, you know, you have a lot of options for these bigger, you know, shows, is that, you know, it's going to get more people noticed. I mean, you know, you go to a show and you beat one of the quote unquote, you know, top tier drivers, and everybody's going to know about it. In today's Derby world, you know, everybody's going to know about it. You know, and you know, same thing. You go and put on a show, and you know, you ruin a bunch of guys' nights. People are going to know about it. So that's, you know, that's part of the sport growing. You know, I mean, a lot of the guys, you know, that are, you know, that have done a lot of winning. They're, you know, they've been doing this a long time. So we have to get, you know, and a case in point would be like the Geggs. I mean, you know, they started with Jimmy Johnson, you know, just running local shows, and now they have some of the nastiest cars at Blizzard Bash year in and year out.
Right.
You know, I mean, they've 3 or 4 years in a row they ran out there, and they've given everybody that they've ran against everything they've wanted, and they were on a winning team one year, and you know, the next generation has got to come from somewhere. And
another good example, I think, is the Tices.
Yeah,
the Tices were regional at best before they started making the trips out there to Blizzard Bash, and now everybody knows who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we saw the same thing. Pete Hansen. You know, Pete made a couple trips out there and was, you know, really made a name. And you know, he's kind of taken a step back. But you know, it really got Pete out there. You know, he like you said, he dominated, you know, up and down the East Coast. You know, water, you know, Pennsylvania, New York, but you know, then he took it 4A West, and you know. And had some good runs and put on some great shows, and that's what people, I think, are really going to start doing. And that's how we're going to get the next generation of drivers. Is, you know, these guys are getting a chance and getting out there and being seen. So it's, you know, I think the sport is definitely alive and well, and I think we're going to do just fine.
Brandon, in terms of Redneck Rumble, and maybe you didn't calculate the numbers on this, but it just kind of popped into my mind. It's one of the things we always talk about with Randy Wilsowski and how they have so many entries, they have to go to a draw, so it's not uncommon for them to see 50% or more new drivers to that event. Not necessarily new to Demolition Derby, but this is the first time that they ran at Winter Slam. How about you with some of your enrollment and your entries? Are these the same names you're seeing over and over again, or are you seeing new names and new names finding success?
There's definitely a lot of new names that come to us at Redneck Rumble this year.
Mm-hmm.
We got several entries from the Pennsylvania area that we typically hadn't had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
You had Chris Quinsler and Brooke, and I don't have 100% of them in front of me. Yeah, Brooke Davis and
okay.
Yep.
Several of those people from Pennsylvania that came down that we hadn't had run for us before, and you know, then there's also some people that had come out of Missouri and stuff in the last year or two that hadn't ran for us before. So definitely seeing it spread further and further away from the central of where we put shows on.
How about your county fair drivers? Do they run at the standalone shows at all?
Some of our county fair stuff is typically guys are within an hour and a half or 2 hours. We get some guys from Kentucky, and then you get some guys from Southern Illinois and a few from Indiana that follow along. So it's kind of a tri-state area type event.
Sure. And, you let me make sure I got this right. You said Bill Miller had won the metric class. That's the same Bill Miller that we were talking about on the last show?
Yeah, Bill, he had actually was on the winning team for the metric class.
What did he drive there?
Both times he was in a 9802 Ford.
I just love watching him drive.
Yeah, definitely does a good job.
He's one of those guys that you can almost set your clock to being at those events. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's going to be there, and we've seen him do some awesome things, and we've also been fortunate enough to see some folks that have done really well down there come up and have some success at other events that we've been at. I think one of the first times I remember coming across Chris Steepro was in Sturgis back in 2014. Mm-hmm. We were down there, and then fast forward a couple of years, we saw him. It was 6-on-1, but he was still he still had a heck of a run at Bachelor Cash and got it down. I think he got it down to second or third,
yeah,
which was amazing when you consider the odds.
Yeah, consider the crew he was running against. Yeah, that was very impressive.
Well, the thing is, I think the only thing that stopped him was the shifter cable.
Ouch.
After I talked to him, yeah, I know Chris pretty well, and I just so happened to looked in his car when he was in the line to go run, and I asked him about his shifter, and he was experimenting with a new cable-operated shifter, and that's actually what put him out.
Bet you goes back to the tried and true.
Yeah, and he told me, he says, I really think I had a shot at winning that thing if I'd had a mechanical shifter in the car.
That's crazy. I mean,
that hurts.
The guy's tough. He won Redneck Rumble in the 5-foot mini class, I want to say 4 times in a row.
Man.
Wow. That's pretty good.
He's a handful.
Yeah, he put on a hell of a show last year, Bachelor Cash. Well, that's how it ended, is him and, whatchamacallit, headlight at about 40. And that was the last hit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Actually, he might have won it 5 in a row, because I think he won the last year Mike Harris had it, too. So,
he's
tough, for sure.
5-foot minis are
I can't
insanity.
imagine.
Well, we saw him a couple times, but it's even that short amount of time from when we saw those in Arkansas and in Kentucky. The evolution of those has changed so much just to where we are now. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It used to be the 5-foot class. You just put as much metal on the side of it and hope that it works. But there's that you look at what a couple of the Crown Vics that we saw out in the Outlaw class. I mean, they're not minis, but still, they're the Crown Vics that came to run in the Outlaw class at Capital City Carnage or some of the other events that we've been to. There is an absolute science that's going through to try and make those things hold up as well as possible. It's not the same as when we're in Western Pennsylvania and you see an Imperial that has 3 layers of sheet metal on it.
Yeah.
It's definitely
they're
it's
definitely
purpose built, but there's science to it.
Yeah, definitely. Getting the suspensions figured out. That was the biggest thing with those.
At some point, wasn't there? It was that 68 300. Was it one of the? I can't remember. Might have been one of the Clausens. They had like a fully skinned and diamond plate. 68 300.
Yeah, Blizzard Bash.
Nathan Clausen.
Yeah, Nathan had it, and it had airplane components in the front end, airplane spindles. I don't know if that was true, but
and they still broke them.
And it still broke.
Yeah, because I think the first 3 years that we were at Blizzard Bash, they ran that class. Right. So you guys saw it 3 times, I saw it twice. The 2 times I saw it, that car was there, and nothing was happening to it. I mean, it was holding up incredibly, and then it broke a tire off.
And then Jack Teagarden won it in a very stock appearing compared to everything else. Imperial. That was cool too.
Remember Jason Brodzinski almost won it the 1 year in a Vic.
Well, that was the year that he had to cut his car apart for the team show, right?
Yeah.
And then everything they cut off the one car, they welded into his, and he came out.
Yeah.
And, I think I'm trying to remember now. 191. Didn't Shea Walden win that year?
I don't think so.
No. Well, we'll get our internet historians to
we'll
check
get
us
it checked out.
to check our stats. We just got a thumbs up from Parker Lazenby. So Parker's listening at home in Utah. I'm sure he was tuned in this weekend to watch Redneck Rumble. And how did the old school class is the one that always gathers the most attention from us. We're not shy about being homers. That's what we've always seen at the county fair. I sent Eric a video going down Wright Avenue and showed him our fairgrounds. And,
really?
He didn't know what he was looking at because it was all snow. But how did the old school class play out overall, Brandon?
Overall, it come down to Rick Clarke and Les Johnson, and that's actually what it come down to last year, except for Les ended up winning. Mm-hmm. This year, Rick ended up beating Les out for the spot. Les was running a Cadillac, super clean, nice build.
Right.
Actually probably had the fewest changes of any car in that class. So just goes to show that you don't have to cobble up and cheat a whole bunch to compete.
He didn't have as many changes in terms of what he built at home or what he had to do after he went through tech the first 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
He actually had, I want to say, one thing to change on the car.
Wow.
And I don't have my list in front of me, but it was super minor.
Right.
And that was it on the entire car.
That's cool.
So.
Yeah, but
super nice car, super.
But if he had
the rules build.
If he had 4 or 5 things to change, he might have won.
Actually, the last shot, Rick's leaf spring went through the bottom side of his door. Ooh. And touched his leg, and he thought, well, it's not worth getting hurt over.
No.
He didn't have an inside or outside door plate on his car, so he really had enough probably to compete with Rick. He just, safety-wise, he decided to take himself out.
Is that an encouraged thing? Do you encourage guys to put their...
Using, on your driver's side, you can have an external and an internal door plate. On the passenger side of the vehicle, you can have an internal door plate.
Okay.
So we encourage those guys, and you're allowed 4 down legs from your cage to sheet metal. So he did not have any of the 3 on his driver's side, and some sheet metal damage went underneath the door bar and pushed in. He didn't have any physical damage to his leg, but it kind of let him know that, hey, we probably went far enough.
Get your attention.
Yeah, that would have to be pretty scary to have that happen.
It would get your attention for sure. I mean, that's. I like the rules though. I mean, we've been a ton of places where we've talked at length and put it on the inside of the driver or on the passenger side. I like that too. Now, I did hear that the down legs have to connect to sheet metal. So if I have rust damage in 4 spots on the frame and patch it with sheet metal, I can connect the down tubes to that, right?
So your rust repair would connect to your down legs?
Yeah, that's easy enough, right?
It still would have to be to sheet metal, not to the frame. and your rust repair inside the car, like your floor pans, has to be the same thickness as your floor pans, and it can only be welded 1 inch, skipped 1 inch.
That's why Chris talks about derbies and doesn't build cars.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right.
And then you can't have a 1 inch overlap on the good sound material, and the rust has to be cut out. So it can't be double panels, etc.
Right.
Makes sense.
Drill bit will find that quick.
Absolutely. Sometimes those guys patch with...
It's pretty hard to find. It's pretty hard to hide in the rust or the burn through and burn marks when you start welding sheet metal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, because your burn marks travel 2 to 3 inches on thin stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everybody's listening close.
I know. I'm not going to say a name, but I know some guys that had a rusty Cadillac on the roof, the pillars where they come down to the roof fenders.
Yeah.
And they patched it with stainless steel.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that worked well. There wasn't a rule that said you couldn't do that.
But as it went through, you heard 3 different impact points.
Well, the problem was they had a hard time drilling. Then they're like, well, how come it's hard to drill? Oh, it's stainless steel. Yeah.
Wow. That's funny.
Yeah.
Where was that?
Was that
in New York?
Off air.
Okay, fair enough. Was it in New York?
Off-air.
Not even that much, huh?
Off-air.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
How did how did tech go as a whole? I mean, I know that was one of the things we hit on last time about how important it is to keep good communication among all the folks that are working in the tech line and making sure that everybody's on the same page and they've got one job to focus on, so you don't have one guy that's running all over the place and risking missing something. How did tech go?
It went pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't have exact numbers in front of me because I don't have my inspection binders in front of me, but I want to say there was maybe 6 or 7 cars that either weren't able to make the changes or weren't really given the option to make the changes. I think there's only 2 that weren't given the option, but maybe like 5 more that said, hey, I can't cut that and still have a decent car. I'll just take it somewhere else.
Right. Now, what's your take on that?
A little higher number than last year, but still not terrible considering 125 entries.
Right. 125 entries is pretty good for January, I would say.
Absolutely.
Given the reach that you were pulling from too, like we said, it was a big footprint. What's that say to you as a promoter when you have guys that have cars that weren't given the option to change or that were given the option to change and opted not to? There's obviously there's 2 big differences there, that given the option to change and choosing not to make the changes. What's your take on that now that you wear a promoter hat, given that you're also a builder?
Well, 2 of the things were guys that disregarded. We make them keep the core support mount in factory location. Mm-hmm. More or less just ensures that the frame link's the right length to meet the requirements without having to put a tape on everybody's car. So once you cut past that and you're too short, it's kind of hard to change that. Plus, that's a direct violation. It tells you don't touch the core support mount, leave it in factory location. So those, and then one, I guess a guy took it upon himself to restub a car, and it had a plate on the outside of the frame rail that they try to kind of hide, mask with some stuff.
Right.
And he's like, well, I can fix that. I can cut that. So I looked inside the frame, and there's also a plate on the inside of the frame.
Ooh.
I'm like, look, communication is the key. If you would have called me, I would have gave you a repair plan on how to restub this thing and be legal. Instead you try to hide it with camouflage and hope it doesn't get seen. And, so that was the 2 that didn't get an opportunity to fix them.
Right.
If it just had 2 patch plates on the outside that you could visibly see and there wasn't no malintent, a guy could try to fix it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Realistically, I don't know if you can cut that plate off of it without butchering the car.
Intent. A lot hinges around intent right there. Mm-hmm. This is also the first time I've ever heard a promoter discuss, if you call me, I would have given you a repair plan.
Yeah.
Tell you how to fix it, with an out and out plan. This is how I want you to do it. I'm sure it's out there, but I just like the term. But that intent right there, that's a big part of it because, like you said, camouflaging it, making sure that it won't be seen and trying to slip it through, that's no good.
Right. Yeah. That's what I do for a living. I'm an inspector, and we perform, repair plans on vessels, and we read codes. This is, what it's required to be legal to operate to a state certification. So, when these guys don't call and they don't communicate, that's usually where the problems start. So I've already reached out to 4 or 5 of them and said, hey, and a couple of them that kind of upset me a little bit is guys that have ran before and knew what the expectations were. But then they come back this year and all of a sudden it's like they didn't even open up the rules. They just built what they wanted.
What were you
like, did you guys think we're just going to put a stick on them and let you run whatever? Or?
And that's kind of what I've heard from other guys in inspection lines. I mean, it's obvious guys are going to push the limits. I mean, that's just part of the game.
Yes.
But that's the thing. That's the thing is like when they push the limits. And, it's to a point where it insults the inspector's intelligence, like, you think you're going to get this passed, or, that you have tried to deceive and, you plated the frame, but you did a bunch of welding and, then you ground and then you seasoned and all that stuff. That sort of thing is, that'll get you in trouble every time. And 9 times out of 10 get you, sorry, but you're going to have to come back next year. And that's that's what it comes down to. I mean, we've mentioned the respect towards the drivers, but there's also got to be respect from the drivers back to the officials and to the inspectors. And I mean, some stuff is just disrespectful to do and bring to a derby and try to get through with it. But not everybody sees it that way.
A text message or a phone call goes a long way.
Yep.
And I'm not always going to tell you no.
Yeah.
If you call me and you have a legitimate, hey, it tells us we can do this. Is this right here okay? That's fine. One guy come and he had his bumper attachment straps done different than most people that were there. And he's like, what do you think? I'm like, I don't have a problem with it. We talked about it on the phone. He's like, well, I just didn't want to come here and get loaded. I'm like, we talked about it on the phone. I don't have a problem with it. It's still doing exactly what it's supposed to. It's keeping the bumper off the track. It's good. But, it's one thing just to say, well, you get this piece of plate, I'll just put it where I want it. Mm-hmm. And then ask for forgiveness when I get there.
Yep.
So with Redneck Rumble in the books, attention now turning to Urban Destruction, April 19th and 20th, 2019. And that one, it's always a good one. And that's another one of those shift point shows where we move from being in that winter season. The weather's starting to get a little bit better. Things are starting to look up a little bit.
Spring.
It's a little bit closer to spring. Yes, it's in Evansville, Indiana. We'll definitely plan on getting together to talk a little bit about that one coming up when that gets a little bit closer to April, Brandon. But before we worry about all that stuff, is there anybody else that you wanted to make mention of or you wanted to recognize for what they did at Redneck Rumble or anybody on the staff with Wicked as a whole that made the show happen?
Mainly just wanted to tell everyone we appreciate, all the vendors making the travel, because some of these guys came from areas that had heavy snow and poor weather, and, they bared through it and came down. Same with the drivers. The guys coming from Pennsylvania, the poor weather that you guys had there, and the guys from Wisconsin, and even some of the guys from, West Virginia area, Ohio. So, it takes a lot of commitment to get not only the car done, but to make it to the track, to make it there on time, follow through and make the changes to get through inspection and be able to compete that night. That's a lot of commitment.
It sure is, but thankfully they chose to persevere and help push your entries to 125 and everything that we've heard and all the feedback that we got. It was an outstanding show, and again, congratulations about all the winners. We're catching up with Rick Clarke here in just a few minutes. I'm glad everything went well. Hopefully your notifications slow down a little bit. It gives you a little bit of breathing room between now and when we get to April for Urban Destruction, Brandon. But it's Demolition Derby. I'm sure it won't.
It's good stuff. It keeps the blood flowing, keeps us digging for the next show, and keeps us excited about the sport in general.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, I appreciate you coming and making some time for us. I know the plan was to get together last night, but obviously schedules changed a little bit on our end, and appreciate you being flexible. And we definitely look forward to talking to you a little bit more as we get closer to Urban Destruction.
All right. Sounds great, gentlemen.
And I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, now. There goes Brandon Dixon, promoter with Wicked, overseeing Redneck Rumble over the weekend.
Anything good on the computer? I see your antenna over there.
Juggling a couple different screens. Mostly, it's derby related, not show specific stuff.
Gotcha.
And I do every now and again pull up Eric Moulet just to see if he's online because I want to see more pictures. The Wahoo picture that he sent earlier was awesome, but I'm absolutely mesmerized by that. He saw a humpback whale and its baby breach right next to him, just pop right up out of the water, and then it swam with the boat. Just swam alongside the boat, hanging out.
Well, what would happen if everybody got mad and just sank the boat?
Well, we wouldn't have cool pictures from Eric Moulet.
Yeah, stuff like that makes me nervous, man.
It's
what is he? 400 miles offshore? That's a long ways to swim.
400 miles offshore right now, with the intent of getting something like 900 miles offshore.
That's a long ways to swim.
Yeah, well, grab a hold of the fin of a humpback and hope for the best, I suppose, huh?
Yeah. We could do a podcast from the boat.
The thing is, I don't think we could.
Yeah,
I don't. I would rather.
You have to helicopter us in and helicopter us out.
There's a lot going on with that I don't think is a great idea.
Yeah, I agree.
It's gonna be long. You know how prone we are to getting caught with bad weather. That's gonna be the time that like a Pacific typhoon comes through.
Yeah.
We're gonna be trying to do it. We're gonna be on 40-foot swells in a dinghy.
We're gonna end up on Gilligan's Island.
The boat that he was in looked like a bath toy compared to the whale to begin with. And now we're going to try and set our table up and find an internet connection. I'd be content to stay on dry land.
Yeah, he swears it's relaxing, though.
He says it's relaxing. He says it's relaxing, but you need to also remember that he lives 13 feet from the San Andreas Fault.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
So I think that's all.
Which side? Is he on the good side or the bad side?
He's on the cracky side.
Ooh, that's not good.
He's on the side that when that decides to jump 5,200 feet above sea level,
yeah, he's going to have to jump the other way
he's
quickly.
going to be living on all the fissures that go both directions.
Yeah.
It's fine. What's the worst can happen? Right?
What's worst can happen?
Can't be bad forever.
No.
That wasn't good.
Can't rain forever.
Yeah, right? Yeah, we hope. We hope. Let's see. Where'd that go? Well, I am batting 1,000 right now, aren't I? That's not even the one we needed. Capital City Carnage is coming up at the Kansas Expo Center in Topeka, Kansas, Thursday, March the 21st. Is the heat draw 7 o'clock start time for that. We'll be on with a heat show, bringing you all of the heat setups, etc., as those come to pass. Friday is the opening round of heats. Limited World Heats are scheduled to start at 7 o'clock. It's going to be on DerbyNation.tv. It's Friday, March the 22nd, the Limited World Heat. Saturday is the Twin Bill. 10 a.m. program includes the Limited World Constellations, the compact round of the first extreme two-man class, and then the 10,000 to win Limited World feature is part of the 7 o'clock program. Modifieds and the second group of extreme two-man competitors will be on the docket as well. It will be a fast-paced show out there for Capital City Carnage. It always is, yeah, but I mean, we're going to be moving event to event to event. It's going to be moving through very quickly. We're getting Rick Clarke here on the line momentarily. But online, if you want more information, capitalcitycarnage.com. If you're looking for additional details on that.
Release driver's list today.
Well, we're going to have to dedicate some time to that next week, aren't we?
Yep.
No question there.
Yeah, for sure.
I've lost some of the cameras. I'm trying to find them, and I don't know where they've gone. Hopefully you're back. There we go. There. That's going to let us do this, and it's going to let me get Rick on the phone.
I'm going to talk amongst ourselves.
You can talk with all your friends over there. How was your birthday?
Good, thank you.
Yeah?
Went and saw the new Kevin Hart movie. It was really good.
Yeah, you were saying it was pretty decent.
The one where he helps the gentleman in the wheelchair. It was a good time. Then we hung out with the family Saturday and watched 24 Hours of Daytona.
How was that?
Wet.
Yeah.
Well, it was wet Sunday morning. Ended up red flagging it and calling it.
Hey, Rick, can I put you in? Well, there's the one and only Rick Clarke joining us on the hotline. Rick, how are you?
Good, you guys?
What's going on, Rick?
Congratulations on the win, man. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. Down south here, strapping down a deuce, and we're getting a load of truck beds. So we're busy.
Sounds like work, man.
Yeah, it is. No rest for the wicked.
So how was it? You've been out there a few times and picked up the W. Gotta feel pretty good with that.
Yeah. It's been I think 4 times I ran there. 2 times second, and finally got a W.
Looked like the wagon was pretty stout.
Yeah, it's hurt a little more than I'd like it, but as long as you get the W, then that's all that matters, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. They now is this your first win in one of the indoor shows, or have you won indoors before?
That's a good question. No, I think it's my first win.
Nice.
Other than up at home at Toronto in the Sky Dome when the monster trucks used to come there.
Yep.
One up there 3 or 4 times.
Nice. Just 3 or 4. Just truthful. Now, is this win number 201? Is this the first one you've had since the last time we talked to you? Was this your first run of the year?
It might be 203 or 4. I forget.
Man, I wish I had that problem.
There in the fall. Yeah.
Wish I had that problem.
Yeah, that's a heck of a problem to have.
Yeah, definitely.
It's got to be a little bit rewarding to go down there, and after Les won last year, you guys get to go 1-2 this year.
Yeah, Les got first last year, Les Johnson from up at home there, and it got down to me and him again, and we battled it out there pretty good for quite a while, and it played out in reverse favor this year for me, so I was happy about that. You're always happy to get a W.
How was the feature? Was it pretty fast-paced, or how was it?
It started out a little slow, bump and grinding like normal, and then about halfway through, everybody started to pick it up pretty good.
Gotcha.
Pretty awesome derby in general.
Good
Metric
deal.
cars, they were getting after it in their feature.
Yeah, those guys usually tear stuff up pretty good.
I missed that.
Oh yeah.
Metric cars were getting after it. So where to next?
Yeah.
Where's the next derby on the schedule?
Well, I guess Freedom Hall on the list for that one. It's a pretty nasty list.
How many shows you going to hit this year? Have you got them all planned out, or?
I got 3 or 4 early, and then do some local ones at home. Like to get to Metal Mayhem this year, but we'll see how it goes.
Nice. Any chance we'll be seeing you in Bash for Cash in Ohio?
Not sure. I'm going to be tuckered out by then, but we're probably there for the weekend anyways.
Well,
One class I wanted to run, I guess it filled up pretty fast. That what is it, limited weld or whatever it was there.
Yeah. Just focusing back on Redneck Rumble from this weekend, how many wagons do you have left now?
40.
Not enough. 3. I think I got 3 at home, fresh ones.
Plus all the ones that you can still fix?
This one, can I fix it? Yeah, probably fix it for another light run somewhere.
So where's
hoping to have enough I was hoping to have enough to take to Urban Destruction, but it's not looking that way.
No. Where does this win fall? We were talking with Brandon about the size of the footprint that Redneck Rumble draws from now, and how extensive that show, the following has become for that event. Where does this fall? Looking at your career win list, it includes a win at Bash for Cash, and you found success on a number of different levels, from county fairs all the way up to national events. Where does this one fall?
It's up there. Yeah, it's a national derby now. It's he sure growed it into a good show. It's great. Another one off the bucket list, I guess you would say. It's a good show.
Now, was the family there to see you pick up the win?
Yeah, my son Ryan, he's with me right now.
Cool.
He's playing hooky from school this week.
Well, he's learning a lot of stuff about life. That's good.
Yeah, he took his Power Wheels, but we were so busy and nobody told us what time they were doing them, and we missed it for him. So
it's all right.
Terribly upset.
That's Dad winning. I'm sure that made it a little better.
Yeah, he thinks he's going to drive Stoneborough at age 11, but Mom and Dad got different thoughts about that.
Yeah, it's funny how that works with Mom and Dad and kids deciding when they're going to do stuff.
Are you still running? I mean, Stoneborough's ways off still, but I mean, are you still running close to 20 derbies a year?
Oh, yeah, with the local derbies and stuff. Yeah, probably 15 to 20, no problem.
Man, you think you get tired out after a while. Holy cow.
Yeah, I'm getting tired.
But
Not 25 no more.
But the thing is, though, is when you get them big W's, it gives you that much more energy, and then you're ready to. I think I can run this show, and I think I can do that one, and that's the tough part.
Yeah. Mine says you can do like Toby Hiley told me once. He says, Rick, We want to run them all, but we can't.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you picking the deuce up from?
We're down south here. I had it bought last trip and had to leave it at a guy's place because I didn't have room for it. But yeah, we're down south here getting some truck beds and doing a little bit of work. Work with pleasure.
Have you been back to Ontario then, or no?
No, we left Kentucky and then just headed south.
Yes. So they got the wagon tied down,
and
then they're going to have some truck beds with a deuce. That's going to be a nice load.
That'll be easy to explain at the border.
Yeah, we got. I think we got 14 beds in a cab, 2 cars, and we got to get 4 more tomorrow. So we're going to be loaded.
4 more what?
4 more truck beds.
Oh, I was going to say 4 more cars. There's no way. There's no way.
Just stack them.
No.
You're going to be loading them upside down.
Your
A
old
bunch of bumpers and.
that toter home's going to be earning its money coming home from down there. That's going to be stressing her out.
No, it just plays with it.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, I was going to ask you.
Hopefully, we won't be like Joe Myers and take 5 days to get home.
Oh,
Yeah.
what happened to Joe?
Truck problems.
All right, tested a drive back. It took like 5 days to get it fixed or something like that.
Gotcha. I was going to ask you what you're going to do with all the money they won at Redneck Rumble, but I think you already answered that question. So you're talking about Stoneboro, and you alluded to Redneck Rumble being one of those bucket list type derbies. What else is on the bucket list that you want to accomplish before you hang up the helmet for good?
I would like to venture out west to Utah.
Yeah.
And try a couple out there. So, and last talk about slumming out there. We just haven't got there to check it out and maybe run one of these years. No, mayhem. That'd be nice to go off the bucket list too.
Yeah. Seems like 2 good options. Not
Definitely.
checking off Utah. Just be able to go out there and run one time is definitely special. To go out there, the views and the area, just to see all that is one thing. But then to go compete at that level, and those guys don't joke.
No.
They are wide open. And then obviously I think
the scenery
go ahead.
countryside looks very nice out there.
Yeah, it's very, very beautiful.
And then I think everybody wants to win Mayhem. That's one of those things, and that's coming up on. Geez, that's got to be coming up on 20 years, hasn't it?
Metal Mayhem. First time I ran there was 2002 or 2001, something like that.
Yeah, it's got to be closing on in 20
closing.
years.
It's closing in.
What's the best finish you've ever had at Mayhem, Rick?
Sorry?
What's the best you've ever done at Mayhem?
Not that great. I don't know. 15th or something like that. I don't know, top 10 maybe once.
Wow.
Not that great.
ran-
Top 10. I mean, come on.
I only ran there 2 or 3 times.
That's a tough derby.
Ran
Well, yeah. I mean,
once when Charlie had it, and a couple times when Tori had it.
Did you run up before they changed it to the 80s and newer? Did you run old iron out there, or did you?
Yes, I did. The year Tori had old iron bone stock, I think was the first year, 10,000 or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, the year it rained so bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I forget what year. It's probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
why were the Lincolns so hard there?
At Lincoln, yeah, it was hard. Why, the Sturgis?
Well, that one too. But we were talking about Mayhem. I just wondered if you had any secrets on to why the Lincolns were always so hard out there at Metal Mayhem.
Oh, the suicides. Yeah, they're hard right out of the box.
Yep.
Don't take much to make them hard. Just mount the bumper on good and send it. I never, the year I ran, I don't think suicides were banned on that.
Did they get?
I think Santel took care of that. Why they got banned?
Yeah, I was gonna say after he won it the second time in a row with a suicide.
You won a couple of them. Yeah. But yeah, I mean the those are going to be a thing of legend. that there's that time period where certain cars just go through this mystique, and that era was impressive, and different people have different takes on why they were as good as they were. And anytime I've ever asked anybody that was in the throes of that time for Metal Mayhem, always says exactly what Rick says, almost word for word. They're pretty hard anyway. All you have to do is put the bumper on, right? And it's like, that's not all the story. There's no way that's all the story.
We've seen Rick be successful with suicides. He's had a lot of good runs in suicides.
Yep. You won.
Yeah, had a couple good.
You won in Sandusky with the suicide, didn't you?
And Stoneboro one night, a couple times the King's Old School, maybe.
Yep. Now, in your opinion, is there a certain year suicide that's the best, or are they all pretty close?
They're all pretty close. Me and Don Santel had this discussion about back in December at White Pines. He said the suicides are, they're not much of an advantage anymore the way the rules are going. Like the promoters are letting you build these electric cars so much better now, so
yeah,
they're, like he said, there's not an advantage like there used to be with them.
Yep.
We saw suicides do very well the year that we went out with Bobby Brockway to Spring Explosion.
Yep.
I think suicides won that year. I want to say that was a group of the Johnsons that won that year, and Rick's won. I remember he had a heck of a battle with Mike Klinger at Stoneboro back. This is probably 2 or 3 years ago, before Klinger Turner came back up for the first Sanfilippo show.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure it was a mod suicide that Rick had when he won in Sandusky at a county fair. Went down there and did really well with, it was either a third or fourth with the suicide, and won the stock division or vice versa. But it was a good night overall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I forgot about that one.
Well, when you have 203 wins, I guess it's easy to forget a few, right?
Yeah, sure is.
Well,
Somebody asked me something about a derby that happened 15 years ago. I said, hell, I don't know. That was 500 derbies ago.
You and Klinger had quite a battle at one of the King's Old School, too, didn't you? When it came down to you two. And did you both have suicides, or did you have a Cadillac?
I think he had a Cadillac. That was a team show.
Yep.
Brett's last show, he had a Cadillac, and what's that guy's name? Munch?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure his first name.
I don't know if he has one.
That's actually what his driver's license says. It says Munch.
Oh, goodness.
It's Munch, and his home address. He receives his mail according to his driver's license in man's deepest fears.
Oh, he's a good dude.
Do you know he used to play in the NFL?
Really?
Yeah.
That's the rumor we've heard.
Yep. I believe it, because I'm never going to ask.
Oh,
yeah,
goodness.
just look at that guy the wrong way. You could get the wrong impression from him pretty fast.
Absolutely.
He's a good dude. We like Munch, lest anyone be confused.
Yeah, both hell of a drivers, him and Klinger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Drive hard.
Well, from here, you've got the deuce that's got to come home. You've got to fix the round back. You've got 3 wagons left, which, with the way you drive them, it should take you through 2023. What's Brian asked about what was next on the schedule? Is Urban Destruction the next one that you're focusing on?
Freedom Hall, I guess you're going to get home and start on that car.
Right.
And then if we have any time, we'll try to get something together for Urban, but I don't know. See how it goes.
Sure.
Have you seen the driver's list for Freedom Hall?
It's pretty good.
The old Leonard is going to be crazy. Yeah, that's one of those shows I wouldn't mind going out and sitting there and watching. That'd be a good time.
I'll fire up the Lear.
Okay.
We'll get you out there.
We can take the Caravan. We've driven halfway there before.
We cannot take the Caravan.
It'd be a good show to go watch.
Hopefully we get the track fixed this year.
It'd be good.
Pretty soft the last couple of years there.
Before we let you go, it sounds like the connection's starting to turn on us a little bit. Before we let you go, is there anybody that you wanted to make mention of?
Just thank my wife at home, Bonnie, for putting up with this crazy sport we all love. but not with me anyways. And my son Ryan, and then Chris Merritt back at home, guy that helps me out in the shop. Wouldn't have got this done without him. Believe it or not, that's pretty good. That covers a lot of them.
All right.
Sounds good. Well, we do appreciate you coming on and making time for us, Rick. We'll be in touch when we get a little bit closer to Freedom Hall.
Okay, guys. Take
Good
care.
luck, Rick.
Thanks, man. Be careful going home.
Yeah. See you guys. Bye.
There goes Rick Clarke, loading up everything under the sun.
Yeah, everything's coming over from North Carolina.
And we did not get a fix on his location in any way, because when you're from Ontario, going south could be to Pennsylvania. It could be to Florida.
Yeah. South. We're south.
Somewhere south.
Rick's a good dude.
Very good dude. Congratulations to him and all the folks that found some success this weekend at Redneck Rumble. We've got the drivers list that we're going to be taking a deeper look at next week for Capital City Carnage. We're trying to recruit some drivers from that list for our next Monday episode. Parker Lazenby will excited to hear that we will be back on Mondays. He sets his schedule around that, so we'll be back on the air next Monday, barring anything unforeseen, and we'll be getting into that. And realistically, we'll probably maybe take a look at that drivers list for Freedom Hall too. Dive into that a little bit.
Freedom Hall's that's got a that old iron heat is crazy.
It's good, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, very good.
Is that what we want? We want crazy, right?
Yeah, I would like to be sitting in the stands watching that one in person.
Just book the time off.
I gotta look and see what when
We
that
can't take
weekend falls.
we cannot take the van. The van is limited to about a 30 to 40 mile radius right now. Given the when you go down the road, the steering wheel goes back and forth all by itself. And I'm pretty sure there's a cord that's broken in one of the tires. I got some tires in the garage, but it's not exactly tire changing weather right now.
No, it's
so
chilly right now.
Gotta moderate. But what do you think?
I think it's time to put his pork in it.
Hit anything else? We can officially clear the note page, and that's going to do it for us. We appreciate you tuning in and hanging out with us here for episode number 259. Appreciate Rick Clarke and Brandon Dixon making some time to hang out with us and recap Redneck Rumble. We'll be getting into the Capital City Carnage entry list next week, and probably try and squeeze in a little bit of time to talk about Freedom Hall as well. So for Brian Tompkins, that's going to do it for us here at the North Park Building at Academy Square. We appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll see you all again right back here again next week. Crash Course Live is presented by Smash It Demolition Derby, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at smashitderby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, hosts of May Mania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at stirringdirtracing.com. Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel, and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York.